Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we are hosting another student panel to answer any questions that you may have about Northwestern and the Northwestern student experience. As an introduction, my name is Drew Hazen. I'm a graduate admission counselor working in our admissions office, and I'm also a recent double alum of the university. I just graduated with my master's degree from our School of Communication, and I was a graduate of the class of 2018 as well, also graduating from the School of Communication. Our schedule for today is as follows. I'm going to share a little bit about the university, share just some facts and figures, as well as a few different topics that are commonly asked at our office. And then I'll introduce our prospective students, or not our prospective students, but our panelists who are current students at the university. And then finally, we'll be taking your questions and answering those questions throughout the majority of our time together. So thank you again for tuning in, and be sure to send those questions into the comment section so we can get those answered and figure out anything that you're curious about with regards to Northwestern. To begin, and to share a little bit about the university, Northwestern is located in Evanston, Illinois, and it houses a population of about 8,000 undergraduate students. Those students represent all 50 states, as well as over 80 different countries worldwide. That's something that we're very proud of because that geopolitical diversity and geographic diversity is providing a lot of benefit to our students. And when we say diversity, we mean that across more traditional metrics, but we also mean that across more non-traditional metrics, such as diversity of thought, experience, and perspective. And all of those things are very important to us because when a student is able to learn not only from their professors, but from their fellow classmates as well, that's going to really profoundly impact and benefit their academic classroom experience. To talk more about the classroom experience, let's start by just talking about what Northwestern has to offer as a whole. So the institution of Northwestern houses 6 undergraduate schools, and those schools are as follows: the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, the McCormick School of Engineering and Applied Science, the School of Communication, the Beanan School of Music, the School of Education and Social Policy, and finally, the Medill School of Journalism, Media, and Integrated Marketing Communications. Now, any student at Northwestern is going to be pursuing a degree in one of those areas or more if you're looking to study multiple areas. But it's important to note that students will have experiences across all of these schools, and you're not going to be siloed to just one of the 6. Nice knowing you'll have a lot of flexibility within your academic experience. We have 1,200 full-time faculty, all of which are going to be hosting office hours, which means that for every class that you take during your time at Northwestern, there's always going to be a time for you to have a face-to-face conversation with your professors if you're looking to ask any specific questions about course content or more about their professional interests, whatever it might be. Additionally, our student to faculty ratio is only 6-to-1, meaning that across the board, you're going to get to know your professors on a pretty good basis. Some go by first names, others prefer the more professional route, but know that you will not just be a number lost in the crowd, that you are going to be able to make those more professional relationships and personal relationships with your professors. For those of you that may not know this about Northwestern, we also function on a bit of a different academic schedule than most. We function on a quarter system, which is different than a traditional semester-based system. What that means is that instead of taking the academic calendar and splitting it in half, as would be the case with semesters, what we do is we typically take the entire calendar year and split it into 4 parts, hence the name, the quarters. That being said, a student's academic experience is going to be taking place during only 3 of those quarters: the fall, winter, and spring quarters. Summer quarter is never required, but it is an option in case students have the desire to take additional coursework during that time. It's also nice knowing that you'll be able to structure your degree in many different ways as well. Maybe you're interested in pursuing a major or maybe 2 majors, a major or a minor. A minor at Northwestern is only about 6 to 9 classes. And there's also a certificate option available as well for various special topics. And a certificate is going to be about 4 to 6 classes during your time. Loosely, we have what's called a rule of 3, meaning that a student can pursue any variation of those as long as it maxes out to about 3. So that could be a double major and a minor, 1 major and 2 minors, or maybe a major, minor, and a certificate. It's totally up to you, but you are going to have a ton of flexibility when it comes to the quarter system, because in the quarter system, you're going to be taking less courses per quarter, but by having more academic periods, you'll finish with completing more coursework than if you had attended a semester institution. That difference on average is about 8 to 10 extra classes. So plenty of opportunity for students to pursue many interests if that is your interest when you arrive at the university. Additionally, we're going to have lots of opportunities for students outside of the classroom to learn and apply that classroom learning, whether that's through our innovation spaces or our research spaces. Innovation spaces could be spaces like the garage, which is great for student entrepreneurs who want to come together to create an app, a service, a product, whatever it might be. Northwestern will have the space and the resources available for those student entrepreneurs to come together and make their idea a reality. I mentioned research, and that's something that we want to make available and accessible to our undergraduate students. And the way that we do that is by providing about $3.5 million every single year just to support undergraduate students as they pursue research. That research can be in more traditional STEM fields, or it can be in non-traditional, non-STEM fields. There's really no mix or match in terms of what research should look like, but it is great to know that whatever your research interests may be, Northwestern is going to be here to support it for you. If you're looking to do research abroad or maybe just study abroad, that's going to be a great option for you as well. About half of our student population has some sort of international experience during their time here, and about a third of our student population has your typical study abroad experience. Now, 2 quick notes on study abroad. Any financial aid that you have while you're here at the university will travel with you and apply towards your study abroad costs, making it theoretically no more expensive to study abroad than if you were to stay here and study on campus. And the second point is that any courses or credits that you accumulate while you're abroad will travel back with you and apply towards your degree progress. So making it a very nice option for so many of our students that are looking to possibly explore outside of the United States for their studies. If you're looking to land an internship or learn more and have more professional support, we have an entire office dedicated to that as well. The Northwestern Career Advancement Office is great for students being able to connect that classroom learning they had and make it happen and make it manifest when it comes to applying to internships or other professional experiences. They're going to help you out with everything you can think of, whether that's resume help, mock interviews, different funding for unpaid internship experiences, or funding for different professional dress needs, whatever it might be. Know that there's an entire office dedicated to helping our students reach out and make those professional connections so that they can land a great job after graduation. If you're looking to get involved outside of the classroom and looking to spend your time doing other things, there's so many different options for you to do that. We have over 500 different student organizations. So there's going to be so many options for you when it comes to finding ways to get involved in extracurriculars on campus. It's also very easy to make your own. It's a very simple process, and new organizations come up every single year. So it's great seeing what ideas students have and how they can become a reality. Now, you're going to be here on campus, and this place is going to be your home, both metaphorically speaking, but also in a literal sense. We have a 2-year on-campus living experience for our students, although students are welcome to stay for more time if they wish to do so. Just know that that is going to be a key part of your time at Northwestern. And it's also nice knowing that outside of those student organizations, those different organizations, there's also going to be other spaces, what we call significant spaces in our campus community as well. Those spaces could be any of our various faith-based spaces, the Gender and Sexuality Resource Center, the Black House, the Multicultural Center, whatever it might be. Know that there's going to be small pockets of community for students to connect of similar backgrounds and identities so they can learn from each other as well as engage with the larger Northwestern community. Now, what I'd love to wrap up with before we start our student panel is to talk a little bit about our application process as well as financial aid. And an important note is that, like many things, COVID has affected the application process for many current students who are looking to apply to Northwestern. An important note to start this conversation is that Northwestern, for the year 2020-2021, the application cycle, we are having a test optional policy. That means with our standardized test scores, such as typically the ACT or the SAT, students are not required to submit scores for this coming year's application. However, if a student has already received a score and they wish to share that with the university, you're more than welcome to do so. It does in no way hinder you this year to not submit your scores because we understand the restrictions that are in place due to various cancellations or changes in the testing schedule. So once again, don't feel that that's going to hinder you. Outside of the standardized test scores, we're also going to be asking for your high school transcript. That's going to include high school coursework, the classes that you chose to take, the challenge level of those classes, the grades you received in those classes, and additionally, how you spent your time outside of the classroom as well. We'll also ask for essays. One of the more important essays that we ask for is the Why Northwestern essay. We want to know why this university out of anywhere else in the world. So that's a very important one. It says it's recommended, but let me tell you, it's pretty much required because we as Northwestern really want to know the answer to that and why you want to fit in with this Wildcat community. And finally, we'll also ask for letters of recommendation. We're going to be asking for a minimum of 2. One should be coming from a high school guidance counselor, and the other should be coming from a teacher from a core subject area. So think math, science, English, something along those lines. While the minimum is 2, there's technically no maximum, but my kind request of all our applicants here is that they are judicious with the amount of letters of recommendations that they send us. It is important to note that quantity does not equal quality. It's better to have a smaller group of professionals speaking to different aspects of you as an applicant that may not have already been touched on, rather than having the same narrative shared with us repeatedly across many. So kindly, for all our future evaluators who are going to be looking over your applications, be sure to share stories that haven't already been shared instead of trying to share a lot of stories. And it should be noted that the way that we accept these materials is going to be through 2 online testing application portals. Those are going to be the common application or the coalition application. We have no preference as to which you are going to use. Just know that those are the 2 that are commonly found in the college application process. You'll note with the application cycle that I didn't mention a single thing about financial aid. And that is because that is a separate process from our financial aid. We are reading all of our domestic applicants completely need blind. And the reason that we do that is because we don't consider a family's ability to financially contribute when it comes to evaluating the credentials of a student's application. We are able to meet 100% of a student's demonstrated financial need once they are here on campus. So if you and your family are interested in having financial aid, it's an important note that when you start the application process, you fill out both the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, as well as the CSS profile. Both of those give us a number provided by the government as to what a family can reasonably contribute towards a child's education. Once we have that number, that's what we call the family contribution. Any difference between the total cost of attendance at Northwestern and what the family's contribution is, any difference in that number is going to be met in totality by Northwestern's resources. We never want finances to be the reason why a student shouldn't attend our university, especially if they have the merit to do so. If you're wondering how you and your family's financial situation plays into this, I recommend that you go to our online financial aid website and find something called the Net Price Calculator. It's going to be a very helpful starting tool for students as they start this process, so they can get an accurate estimate of the financial support they can expect to receive from Northwestern based on their financial information. So I'd highly recommend, if you haven't done so and you're curious about Northwestern, to start that process there, because that's going to help guide you as you continue your college search process and consider Northwestern. Well, thank you all for listening just to a little bit of the information I had to share. What I'd love to do now is introduce the part and the reason why we're all here, our student panelists. So I'll go and pass it off to them. They'll share a little bit about their involvements and what they do here on campus, and then we'll get started with answering your questions. So to start things off, Chloe, would you want to share a little bit?
Hi, my name is Chloe. I am a senior from Westchester, New York. I am pre-med studying neuroscience and psychology. And one thing I do outside of the classroom is that I work in a neuropsychology lab doing research on schizophrenia. So I'll pass it on to Trevor.
Hello, my name is Trevor. I'm a junior, not a sophomore anymore, a junior, studying economics. I'm out of Boston, Massachusetts. Go Pats. Yes, I did say it. Like I said, I study economics, and when I'm not in the classroom, I really enjoy singing. So I sing as a part of the university chorale, which is one of our academic vocal choirs on campus. And I'm also everyone on Northwestern's campus is a nerd in some capacity, but I'm also like a really good example of a Northwestern nerd because I'm really interested in board games and other different types of strategy games. And I'm also like friends with a lot of other people in various aspects of the nerd community. So it's a smaller thing, but if you have any questions about that, do be sure to send them my way. I'm going to pass it on to Tricia.
Awesome. Thanks, Trevor. Hi everyone, my name is Tricia. I'm a rising fourth year student from Hinsdale, Illinois, which is right outside of Chicago. At Northwestern, I study civil engineering. When I'm not in the classroom, I am dancing and choreographing for student theater productions on campus. So with that, I will pass it on over to Delaney.
Hello, my name is Delaney. I am a fourth year student from Clemson, South Carolina. I am a radio, television, film major, and within that, I'm a part of 3 different module tracks or certificates. So that's our advanced directing module for fourth year students, media and game design, and also comedy arts. So that's a lot happening. And one thing I do outside of the classroom is I also love to sing. I am part of one of our many a cappella groups on campus, Extreme Measures, along with Trevor and Drew. So that's exciting. And I'll pass it off to Kandise.
Hi there, folks. Last but most, my name is Kandise LeBlanc, and I am a recent graduate of Northwestern. I received my 2 degrees in the mail today, actually. I received a Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing from our College of Arts and Sciences and a Bachelor of Music in Voice Performance / Opera from our Beaton School of Music on the dual degree track. I'm originally from Long Beach, California, and that's where I'm coming to all of you today. And during my time at Northwestern, I was a part of a lot of different things, but some of my favorite highlights is that I was an undergraduate research assistant in our departments of sociology, African American studies, and as well as English. And as a part of my voice major, I completed my senior honors recital that I created online as a multimedia experience, exploring the Black woman experience through a combination of artwork and song. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to pass it back to Drew.
Excellent. Thank you so much to all of our student panelists. I'm very excited. We got a great crew to answer your questions today. So as a reminder, once again, if you haven't done already, please go ahead, send those questions down below in the comments section so we can answer them during our time together. The first question that I'd like to ask is going to be to Tricia. She's going to be helping me out with this. How would you describe some of the benefits or maybe just the differences between the quarter system versus a more traditional semester system?
Yeah, that's a super good question. That was one of the first things about Northwestern where I was like, whoa, this is different than what I had from high school. So just to give a general rundown, our overall academic calendar roughly starts at like the end of September and goes until early to mid-June. So that's the first thing that's a little bit different. Just to run down the perks of the quarter system, you take an average of 12 classes per year and then over 4 years. So that equivalates out to around 48 classes. On a semester school system, you take an average of 40 classes. This is super important to note because those 7 to 8 classes, as Drew mentioned in his little spiel earlier, constitute a minor or a certificate. So that's really one of the things that frees up those areas of your schedule to take more different classes. Additionally, I like to say whenever we have a break at Northwestern, it's a true break. So like our semester school friends, we have winter break at the end of our fall quarter. But then in between our winter and our spring quarter falls spring break. So even if you wanted to study for a test or write a paper like your friends at semester schools, you really are forced to like take a break and sit down and like take that spring break to really just relax. So that's another perk. I've also found that like everyone is always a little bit scared that classes are going to get cramped into that 10-week schedule, but this is not the case at all. Professors value their material just as much as you value your learning. They would never cram their material that they think is important into 10 weeks. That just wouldn't happen. So classes that take 2 semesters would still take 3 quarters. So that's always just one thing I want to qualm. Everything is still super thorough. You get to take more classes. Whenever you have a break, it's a true break. So those are just some perks of the quarter system that I found that I really love. And now that I've done it, I couldn't imagine going to a semester school. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for that answer. Dale, would you want to help me out with this next one? We have some students who are curious about roughly how much time are students spending studying during their average week? Obviously, there's no one size fits all answer, but if you could just talk about how students are balancing their academic responsibilities and finding time to tackle that amidst many other things.
Definitely. Well, like you said, I bet everybody's answer to this question would be different because we're all studying different things, involved in different things. But I have found here that I think students do a really good job of balancing life and work or life and school. because every person I've met at this university is very into many, many different things. And it seems to be impossible to be into many, many different things if you don't budget your time well. So for me, I usually spend a lot of hours during the week on projects for my classes. I would say I maybe do 2 to 3 hours of like schoolwork a day. And then I dedicate my evenings to my extracurricular activities like a cappella or sketch TV, where everybody can sort of meet up and put the schoolwork behind them. One thing that's really, really helpful about this specific topic, though, is that every time you complete a class at Northwestern, you fill out a course evaluation about that specific class that is then available for all future prospective students in that class to see. And they ask questions about how much time did this class take you? How consuming was it? How much did you spend on homework a week? So if you really want to budget your quarter in a smart way, you pick classes that kind of even each other out. So that's helped me a lot, but it's definitely not more than you can handle. And there's a lot of resources for support too.
Great, thank you so much. Kandise, this next question is kind of in the same vein. Dale shared a little bit about how students are spending their time during the week and tackling their academic responsibilities. But on the flip side, how are students spending their time on the weekends? How do Northwestern students have fun, be social? How are they spending that time?
That's an amazing question. I feel like the best way to answer it is kind of describe what an average weekend looks like. And so depending on when your weekend can start as early as even possibly Thursday or Friday, depending on how your classes are. For my spring quarter, my weekends, I guess, technically started on Thursdays. But if you probably on that Friday night, you can go and catch one of our a cappella shows with one of our over 12, I think now, a cappella groups. On Saturdays during the fall, that's football season, and sports is a really big thing with Northwestern, especially since we are a Big Ten Division I school. So you'll probably catch a football game in the morning, maybe catch brunch afterwards, and during the afternoon, work on some homework in the libraries with some friends. And then that evening is yours to spend as you'd like. For me, during sophomore year, I played Dungeons and Dragons with friends, or going to one of our over 80 overall theater productions that are happening in a given year. And then on Sundays, that's the opportunity to maybe catch up on the work that you did or did not do in the beginning part of the weekend. Or for me, I personally, I sang at a church job, so I also attended church in the morning, and also being able to have that time really to decompress and starting off that upcoming work week, school week, depending on how your schedule looks, on the right foot.
Great, thank you so much. Glad to hear that there's some good tabletop gaming representation in our student panel today, but sounds like there's a lot of great options for our students when it comes to how they're wanting to spend their time and relax after classes. For this next question, Tricia, would you want to help me out again? We have some students who are curious as to the academic experience of students who may not major in the arts, but want to be involved. For example, does a student have to major in theater to perform in theater? Music with music, those sorts of things apply. How would you kind of answer that question?
Yeah, that's a super good question. So as I mentioned in my introduction, I study civil engineering, but I'm also super heavily involved with student theater on campus, and I also sing a cappella. So one thing that I've really, really loved since the moment I toured Northwestern, my tour guide was actually an engineer who sang a cappella, and I thought that was the coolest strike of fate. And I was like, oh, he must be the only one that does this on this campus. And I was like, shocked to find out that he was like, no, I have like 10 friends that do the exact same combination that I do. And then there's dozens beyond that do other combinations of super seemingly unorthodox things to put together. But one thing that I really love is that not just like in the academic scene, but also in the extracurricular scene, how it's so promoted to dip your toes into several different things. Like really, as long as you are enthusiastic and passionate about an experience, they don't care what your major is. When I first wanted to get involved with choreography, I asked my friend Esri in my a cappella group, I was like, hey, I heard you're music directing a show. Do they need a choreographer? Because I would be really excited about it. And she was like, oh, if you're excited about it, sure. So I sat down with the director and then got involved. So truly, like, I know a ton of people who are involved in the art scene that aren't arts majors, and I know a ton that are. And I've never felt like anyone looked down on me for not being an arts major. In fact, I think it's really cool that I'm able to balance the two things. So I really love it. And it's not just in singing or a cappella or theater. You can also do that with dance. You can do it with visual art. There are so many different clubs, but truly there are no prerequisites to be involved with any sort of club. So I found that being involved with the arts extracurricularly has been a great way to address those parts of my identity that I was really missing having in my life. So that's huge. That has been huge throughout Northwestern.
Thank you. Nice knowing for all of our future artists that they can have the option to get involved regardless of whether or not they're directly majoring in that subject area. Chloe, would you want to help me out with this next question? I mentioned briefly in our introduction that we are located in Evanston, Illinois, which is just north of Chicago as well. We have some students who are curious how the Northwestern community interacts with Evanston or the Chicagoland area, what safety measures are in place to make sure that students can safely interact both on campus and the surrounding areas. If you want to speak a little bit on that.
Yes, absolutely. So I guess first I'll speak a little bit to kind of what there is to do in Evanston. It's a really, really incredible place. So I don't know if anyone here has been, obviously everyone that goes to Northwestern has been, but it's a beautiful, beautiful campus. We have multiple beaches that are free to students. There's also an amazing food scene in Evanston as well as in Chicago. And there's a bunch of opportunities for the arts. And as Northwestern students, we have the opportunity to go to a bunch of different museums and shows for free. So actually my freshman year, we got to see Hamilton. My entire grade got to see Hamilton. And it was amazing. So it's really, really fun to have both Evanston and Chicago. And in terms of how to get into Chicago, there are three main ways that students get there. So there's the inner campus, which is free to students. It's a shuttle, get you there in about 35 minutes. There's also the L and the Metra, and those are between $2 to $5. So it's really, really easy to get there. And then in terms of safety measures, on campus and within a few mile radius of campus, we have what's called a blue light system. So anytime a student feels unsafe, they can just press the button and immediately a camera will start recording everything and the police will be there in under a minute. So that's definitely something I personally don't know anyone that's ever had to use that, thankfully, but it definitely is there. In terms of safety on campus, also, we have what's called a 3-lock system in the dorms. So between the time that you enter your dorm and the time you get to your room, you go through a series of 3 different locks to ensure safety. And I'm sure it's gonna be a little different this year too. I know there's gonna be restrictions on visitors and stuff, but it's definitely, they've always made a big effort to make sure that students are safe. So yeah, thank you.
Incredible. Thank you for that answer. Great knowing there's going to be a lot of options for our students. Trevor, would you want to help me out with this next one? Obviously, the move and transition towards the college environment can be a very big one. So what resources does Northwestern have in place to help students transition from high school or whatever their academic experience was into the college environment?
Yeah, really good question. So I think a really good example of this is just talking about my first year fall advisor. In your transition to Northwestern, the Office of New Student and Family Programming really does a good job of making sure you feel like someone's in your corner from the moment you get here. Within the first couple of days of being on campus, I met both my peer advisor, who was another student. Her name was Nita, and she was one of the smartest people I've ever met on this campus. So she was a really great resource, a really intelligent person to meet and really talk to me about what my experience is going to be like here right from the get-go. And then I also had my advisor, who I have since, who I built a relationship with. He taught my first year seminar at Northwestern. All freshmen in Weinberg, all first year students in Weinberg, take a seminar class with their their first year advisor, and your first year advisor gets switched with another advisor either at the end of your first year or at the beginning of winter quarter. But that first year advisor really does a good job of making sure you're planning well for the future. Northwestern loves to give their students advisors. So I have an economics advisor for my economics major. I'm sure Kandise, she can speak more to this, but if you are in a dual degree program, you will have both you'll have your advisor for being a dual degree student, and you'll have your advisor for one school and your advisors for another school. So Northwestern really does a good job of making sure they have faculty members who know the resources necessary for you to be able to succeed here in your transition from the high school. And so just from that beginning relationship with your peer advisor and your faculty advisor, it's really easy to transition to academic life at Northwestern, which has been really cool.
Great. Thank you, Trevor. Yes, definitely want to reiterate just the amount of support you're going to be receiving through Wildcat Welcome, a really robust system to help make sure students feel connected during their transition. Dale, would love to have your expertise for this next question. As a radio, television, and film major and someone in the world of that realm, would you want to help name just a few options or ways to get involved for students that might be interested in broadcast or things of that nature?
Definitely. So whatever type of broadcasting you're into, we definitely have an organization for that. There's too many to choose from. I was a radio DJ for like 3 years here on our on-campus radio station, WNUR, which was so fun and a really cool experience. If you're into music, we also have news programs that run on there. So a lot of students in the Medill School of Journalism really like to do that broadcast radio. We also have broadcast television reporting, if that's something you're interested in. NNN is our student news network, and Sports Night is our student sports show that gets broadcasted once a week. And if you're interested in maybe less journalism, more film, television, we have so many production opportunities here. It's insane. Even if you're not an RTVF major, you can join in like an outside organization where you can film like sketches and all that type of thing, and it'll get broadcast online, and you'll be like a campus celebrity if you act in them. It's very fun. Highly recommend. Okay, back to you, Drew.
Incredible, thank you. Great to know there's going to be plenty of options as you just described. Chloe, would love to pick your brain for this next question. We have a student asking, what's something that you wish you knew before you attended Northwestern? So what would be a piece of advice or a gem that you could share with that student?
Something I wish, that's actually a good question. I wish I would have known more. I wish I would have done a little bit more research about all the different clubs on campus. We have an excellent page that basically lists every single club. Just so I would have known a little bit about like what I wanted to do, because I got there and I was like, oh my God, there's so many cool things to do. And I was like, how do I even decide like where I want to focus my energy? So I think if I would have gone in with a better understanding of kind of like a little bit of an idea of all the amazing opportunities, then it would have been something that I could have figured out more early on. But yeah, there's definitely, it's good to know kind of what you're up against and all the amazing opportunities that you could have.
I would definitely agree with that advice as well. So thank you for sharing. Kandise, we have some students who are curious about the types of academic support that exist outside of office hours. Obviously, office hours are a nice benefit, but what other options do students have if they're looking for additional support?
Definitely. Like Trevor mentioned before, your academic advisors are going to be the main people that you have contact with. And as he alluded to before, for every additional specialization or specialized program, so whether that's a major, minor, certificate, or specific tracks like the Premed track, or it used to be pre-legal track, now legal studies is a major, those additional tracks, you have those academic advisors and you can go to them and ask them, hey, I have no plans for the summer. Can you help me find a job for this upcoming summer or quarter? Or being able to figure out if you're going to take the class that you really want and making sure that that's able to count for some sort of credit towards the majors that you have. I know particularly for me, in the Beaton School of Music, our dean, Dean Jacobs, is so accessible, and she's the dean of the school. And I can go to her for anything from talking about a course that is really hard for me and figuring out how can I find a course that actually represents my interest that still fits the credit, to still just talking about her getting married during the time that I was at Northwestern and recently having a kid.
Incredible. We love those stories and we love that support as well. Trevor, if you could help out with this next question. Kandise just shared a little bit about the academic support that students can receive, but for any students that might be interested in, once again, finding those internships or finding professional experiences for after graduation, what resources, experience are available for those students looking for career prospects?
Yeah, so again, Kandise spoke a lot about the academic advisors who do a really great job working with you and getting you professional opportunities. And also Northwestern has an entire department called Northwestern Career Advancement, who really do an excellent job advocating for students and connecting them through a variety of platforms to different internships and job opportunities. So through we have a Handshake platform, and through Handshake, Northwestern Career Advancement really does a great job of finding students, helping making sure they're prepared for interviews and job applications, and making sure they have staff members to go through different aspects of those types of things with students, and really being accessible as to what to put on a cover letter, how to dress for an interview. Drew mentioned during his opening spiel that meeting dress costs are really important. It's a really important aspect of being in the professional world. So there are resources to do that, to help do that for you. So Northwestern they want to provide a really good on-campus experience, but Northwestern also does a really good job of making sure you have those resources to prepare for life after college, and even in professional opportunities during college. So Northwestern Career Advancement's a great example of that. Another good example is Chicago Field Studies is a great way of getting involved professionally while you're on Northwestern's campus. Not necessarily Northwestern's campus, but while you're at school. You can take a quarter and go and work in Chicago, either for credit or professionally. And so you can really take that, apply what you're learning at Northwestern through a Northwestern program, either in Evanston or in the local Chicago area.
Chloe, this next question is going to be for you. We have some students who are curious about Greek life and the role that it plays on campus. Would you want to speak more on that?
Sure. I think it's really the type of thing that is at Northwestern, it's kind of more of just like a club that students can join. I don't think most people don't view it as like their sole identity. It's something that if students choose to get involved in, they can, but I don't think at all that it makes or breaks social life at all. It's just kind of like another club that students can choose to join. Just for statistics, about 40% of students are involved in Greek life, but that's a little bit deceptive because that also includes stuff like multicultural fraternities, the music fraternity. So I would say a more representative statistic is that about 10% of students live in Greek housing on campus. But like I said, it really is what you make of it. If you want it to be everything, it can be. If you want it to be nothing, it doesn't have to be anything. So it's what you put into it is what you get out. And I think that's true of a lot of things at Northwestern.
This next question, I'm going to tap two of our panelists. If I could have Dale and Trevor answer a question. Would you want to share just a little bit about what is a brief explanation or experience as to your favorite class that you've taken, whether it's interesting, exciting, whatever it might be? What's been your favorite class? Let's start with Dale.
This is such a fun question. I love it. I have so many to choose from. I think my favorite would be a completely random radio, television, film class that my advisor pushed me into my sophomore year, fall, when I just casually mentioned to her that I was interested in animation. So she was like, great, go take this computer coding class for the arts. And I was like, not what I meant. But then it ended up being kind of magical and set me on my entire career and artistic track that I'm on today. It was amazing. I had never touched computer code before. If you would have told me that I would be doing that, I would not have believed you. And we use computer code to make artistic projects, to make installations, to tell stories. And it really just opened my eyes to what I can do as an artist and with technology. So that was really, really, really cool. And it introduced me to the whole module that is media and video game design, which I'm now a big part of. And I just never would have touched anything like that had my advisor not pushed me in it. So I love to cite that class. What about you, Trevor?
Oh, misfinding my audio button. Yeah, really excellent question. I think there's a lot of really good ones, but I think the one that always pops into my mind when I'm talking about my favorite class experience is I always say, as a fun fact, the first thing I ever learned at Northwestern was how to solve Rubik's Cube, because my freshman year seminar at Northwestern, it was Rubik's Cube, square dancing, and math, which was this really interesting way of tying up a bunch of different concepts, which you wouldn't have thought would mesh together, but actually work really well together. So it was a freshman year seminar. So it's definitely a really good example of like exploring your interests in ways that you wouldn't think to do otherwise, because I never wanted to be a high level math student, but here I was in my freshman seminar interested in taking a little bit of a math course, and I was learning all these high level like permutational concepts and like applying them and how solving a Rubik's Cube works, which is just really, really fun and really, really interesting. So it taught me a whole bunch of cool skills, like how to write a proof in a like mathematically like coherent way, which is something you don't quite get until you get to the collegiate level. And I don't think I would have been able to do that outside of the classroom. So definitely not a class I would say like applies heavily to my economics major, but definitely one of those Northwestern classes that you'll take as a quarter, because you'll be like, oh, this looks like a really cool concept and an interesting way to apply myself. And it was really one of my favorite experiences at Northwestern so far. So really cool class, freshman seminar, Rubik's Cube Square and Math. It was really fun.
Excellent. Thank you both for sharing just a little bit about some of the classes that have grabbed your interest and sharing that with everyone. Kandise, we have one student asking, and this is a relatively common question, so I think it's important to address. We've talked a little bit about double majoring at Northwestern, but we also talked about dual degree and what that looks like. Are those the same thing or are those different? Would you want to shed some light on that process?
Most definitely. One of my favorite questions to answer. So the double major is a very common thing for students to pursue, and it can typically be done in 4 years. And what that looks like is that you'll have one homeschool and you'll have an additional specialization, whether it's in this case a major, in a separate other school. And with the double major, you only have to do the graduation requirements for that one school. So an example of that, I know there's a lot of bassoon players in the chat. If you want to pursue a double major in, say, bassoon and physics, your home school would be the Beaton School of Music with that additional major of physics in the College of Arts and Sciences. However, you only need to do the graduation requirements for the Beaton School of Music, like music theory as well as oral skills. On the other hand, the dual degree program typically does take 5 years. That's not to say that every single course you're taking has to be exactly going to your dual degree. In fact, through having the 5 years to take the dual degree, especially in my experience, I had the opportunity to learn not only a second, but a third language, and also taking a lot of classes just for fun. But with that, you have 2 homeschools and you have to do the graduation requirements for both of your homeschools. So in my case, of not only doing the music theory and oral skills requirements to graduate from the Beaton School of Music, in addition, in the College of Arts and Sciences for my creative writing degree, I also had to do the graduation requirements such as a first-year seminar as well as language courses. And so that's just a brief overview about those differences between those very easily confusable things.
Excellent, thank you. Very much needed explanation, as those can sometimes get confused, but we appreciate the explanation. Chloe, if you want to help us out, you mentioned in your introduction that you are involved on the pre-med track. For any students out there who might be interested in medicine as a career, could you talk about that process at Northwestern?
Yeah, so personally, I love it. It's been one of the best parts of my Northwestern experience. And I think the thing that makes it so great is that it's like kind of like a little community on campus. There's so many pre-med students, and it's really nice having classes with a lot of the same people and being able to study with them. And I think the thing that I was really nervous about going into school was that it would be competitive, but I have found it to be the complete opposite. Everyone is extremely willing to help each other. We're all working together. Everyone really wants to see each other succeed. And I think that's really something that's characteristic of Northwestern as a whole. It's extremely collaborative. Everyone is rooting for each other, which is amazing. And in terms of just like the process, anyone can be pre-med. It's really just the set of classes that you take in order to be able to apply to med school. And when you are pre-med and I don't know if you declare it, but in order to be pre-med, you have to go to the pre-health advising office, and you get assigned a pre-med advisor. And they are super, super helpful. I call my advisor all the time and ask for help. But yeah, it's been a really great experience. And I think the defining thing is that everyone is really, really willing to help each other.
Excellent. Thank you for that explanation. Very popular course of study, so we'd want to make sure we address that. Our next question, I'd love if Tricia could help us out with this. It's important to acknowledge, one, that Northwestern is a tier 1 research institution. So Northwestern is going to be doing a lot of great research. A lot of professors are going to be the ones leading that research as well. However, for the students on campus, are we going to be interacting more with research professors, quote unquote, or teaching professors, quote unquote? Does that distinguishment Does that exist at all? What's been your experience? If you can kind of speak to that. Are professors here for research? Are they here for teaching students? What's that all about?
Yeah, that's a super good question. So I think one thing, regardless of whether or not a professor is here for research or is here for teaching, like I have never had an experience with a professor where they were upset in any way to be teaching. They were all so ecstatic about teaching and so excited about passing it on, so much so that it doesn't actually, like that distinction, I don't normally actually see that ever. Like unless I specifically hear them talk about their research or hear them say like, I'm here for research, that never comes up. So as far as the experience I've had with like both different types, so obviously both are super, super amazing, super, super smart, educated, everything like that. And I say the ones that I've been involved with that as far as like research professors have been really great in talking about their specialty research when you ask about it or if you want to get involved with it. But they're just as great as the teaching side with any questions that you have. So definitely not a distinction as far as like, are they going to be upset to be teaching, anything like that. They're all wonderful. Additionally, I have found that if a professor, like if you would rather not go to professor, if you'd rather go to a teaching assistant, they're also extremely helpful. So I also want to touch on teaching assistants as academic support. A lot of people are like, oh, a teaching assistant should never be like teaching new material or anything like that, but they are super, super helpful, especially in discussion sections. So if you ever are in a smaller discussion section or have a question that you would, that maybe the professor isn't available to answer it right away, they're also super educated. So as far as the difference between research and teaching professors, they're both super ecstatic to be teaching. I've never had a bad experience with either of those types of professors. And then teaching assistants are also really great at answering questions. So yeah, great experience with all of them.
Dale, this next question is for you, following up a bit on the broadcasting that you mentioned earlier. This question comes in two parts though. First part, does Northwestern have a broadcast studio? Could you briefly talk about that if so? And then two, does Northwestern have connections with TV networks in the Chicagoland area or ways to get involved in TV networking?
The first question is, do we have a broadcast center station? Yes. Okay. We have a radio broadcast center, which is our radio station on campus in Lewis Hall. And we have a news broadcast studio in the McCormick Foundation Center, which is the home of a lot of our Medill classes. But in addition to that, we also have a full film production studio within the RTVF home building as well. So definitely have centers to film anything that you want to film or record, whatever you want to record. We even have like a full operating sound stage on this campus, which is amazing. And then the second question is connections to TV networks. And that is 100% true. Even some professors I've had will just rattle off like their employment history. And I'm like, whoa, that's insane. You toured with like my comedy idols. That's cool. But yeah, there's tons of connections, especially Trevor mentioned before the Northwestern Career Advancement Office. They've been really, really helpful for me. Like I went last year, I was like, I really want to work the summer in Chicago. And so they gave me tons of options. There are NBC affiliates that are really popular. And I've gotten connected to all those industries through the Career Advancement Office. And this is such a prime question for me because next week I'm going on the School of Communications Career Trek tour virtually. So I'm going to be meeting executives from NBC, Sony Animation, DreamWorks, like really, really impressive people. So things like that happen here all the time. If you want to be connected to somebody, you definitely can. Yeah.
Incredible. So glad that we caught you right before you're about to embark on your tour. So best of luck with that coming up. Kandise, if you'd want to help out with this next one, for any students identifying as LGBTQ+ or wanting to learn more about those resources on campus, what would you have to say or to share with those students?
Most definitely. And I think that was something that was really important to me. Like I have two moms, and so I wanted to go to a campus where I could feel like a very integral part of my identity could also be shared and accepted and also be a part of the common vernacular. And how that happens is that during Wildcat Welcome, which is our first year in transfer orientation, I won't give away any secrets because it's supposed to be a really big surprise, but Student Body is an event that's one of our more popular events during Wildcat Welcome that has sexual education as a part of it, so that all incoming students have a similar vernacular of being able to talk about this. And as well, there's various different significant spaces as well as student organizations ranging from the Women's Center to Rainbow Alliance that are specifically affiliated organizations to cater to LGBTQ students. And one of my favorite events on campus is Sex Week, which happens every year. We actually had a digital version of it this past year during the pandemic. But it's a moment in which I think students are able to talk about something which could seemingly be taboo, like sexuality or gender, and being able to express it with your comrades so that it becomes not only just a conversation that's happening at Northwestern's campus, but we're able to expand those conversations once we graduate as well.
Incredible. Thank you so much. Great knowing that those resources are going to be there. And it's great knowing that you felt supported in that journey as well. Heading back to Dale for this next question. For any students that are curious about the mental health resources that are available on campus for students, what resources or just experiences are available for anyone curious about that?
Yeah, this is a super important question. And I wish I would have known about some of these when I was first coming in, because I'm from like the smallest town ever. So coming to Northwestern freaked me out a little bit at first. But I found a great therapist in Evanston through our Counseling and Psychological Services Office, CAPS as it's known. And so you can meet with them a few times and then they'll recommend you out to somebody in the area. And if you have Northwestern insurance or whatever insurance you have, they'll make sure that's all covered for you. We also have a lot of spaces. I found a lot of mental health in based on my identity, but also I found a lot of help from my academic advisor. I don't know if this is like a unique experience, but she's like my mom on campus. I go in and chat with her all the time about whatever I want. And one thing I also like to point out is Northwestern's a really, really good school, but it has never been competitive in a way that hurts my mental health and my soul. Everybody's very supportive, and I've never had an experience where a professor wasn't understanding if I was like going through something and needed a little help, needed a little time. There's a lot of room for that here. And so I feel like I finally made my comfortable space for myself. But yeah, I hope that answered the question. Okay.
It definitely does. Thank you so much for sharing on that. This next one is for Trevor. Could you share a little bit how students are able to travel to the Chicagoland area if they're looking to get involved? What opportunities, routes, what ways can students get around in the area?
Yeah, I think Chloe touched on this a little bit, but are you just looking for ways to get ways to be involved, like ways to travel to Chicago? So Chicago has a lot of really excellent opportunities. Obviously, there's a lot to do in Evanston on Northwestern's campus, but if you do want to get involved in Chicago, and there's a really great theater scene there, as I mentioned, Chicago Field Studies and other great ways to get involved professionally. There are three major routes to get there. There's the intercampus shuttle, the elevated train, and the Chicago Metro. I've taken advantage of all three. And so the intercampus, that's just a bus that runs for free. With your wild card, and you'll be able to get from either South or North Campus, which is a dichotomy that is a mild can of worms that is not really important, but there's a couple different stops on campus that gets you between Evanston and Chicago in about an hour. And then the L train is a elevated train system. It's a rapid transit system. I call it a subway system, but then again, I'm from Boston, so I'm just biased. That's a really great way to get there for about $2.25 a ride, and that'll get you to the loop in Chicago in about 45 minutes. And then the Metro is a really great way to get into campus, to get into Chicago a little bit faster than that. And that's about $4.25 a ride and about half an hour. Drew, did that answer your question?
Definitely did. It's nice to know that you at least have access through public transport to be on campus, but also to get out into the Chicagoland area as well. Tricia, if you could help me with this next one. Obviously, lots of colleges have their campus traditions and ways to connect students. What's a unique tradition that Northwestern has, and could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So one of my favorite campus traditions happens right off the bat, and the reason I like it is for really cheesy reasons, and you'll see why. So it's a tradition called March Through the Arch. So we talked a little bit about Wildcat Welcome, which is the first year in transfer orientation that all students go to when they first come to Northwestern. So March Through the Arch is basically, we have this arch that was donated in 1993 by an outgoing university president. And it kind of symbolizes the divide, like not divide, but the entrance to our campus and then the exit to like the rest of the Northwestern or the Evanston community. So basically all of the students line up with their peer advisor group and they all take turns marching through the arch. So they're basically entering the Northwestern community with this new group of friends, this new community. And then the whole like sidewalk is lined with families. My mom had pom-poms, like purple pom-poms, and she was waiting for like my peer advisor group number to walk by so she would know when I was coming by. And this was really awesome. Like a bunch of students also come and line those sidewalks. So it's just like a huge, really warm welcome to the Northwestern community. And then of course it does come full circle. So after you graduate, you march back out through the arch to kind of signal the end of your Northwestern career at school. Obviously that's not the end of being a Wildcat, but you march back out through the arch and then you enter the community again. So that's just one of many campus traditions that I love. Even in just the first week of Wildcat Welcome alone, there's a bunch of traditions that you will get to experience that are just so much fun. But that's one of my favorites just because it comes full circle. So you kind of have the beginning of it right at the start of your 4 years, and at the end of it, you get to finish it right now.
That's one of my favorites as well. A great way to bookend your experience at Northwestern. Chloe, if you'd want to help out with this next one, could you talk a little bit just about your experience in residential life and with your roommates on campus?
Yeah. So there are a ton of different residential options for first and second year students specifically, but also for anyone. So we have 3 types of dorms, basically. There's residential halls, residential communities, and residential colleges. So residential halls, your typical college dorm, singles, doubles, triples, suite style, just a really typical experience. Residential communities are a little bit smaller, and they have live-in faculty advisors that do a bunch of programming. And then finally, residential colleges are the smallest, and they're all centered around a specific theme. So for example, there's the Residential College of Communication, and their stuff is centered around like communication stuff, broadcasting. They have a studio in the basement. And so for that, students would apply to be in that if they're interested in that theme. They also have faculty advisors, and they do programming specifically around that theme. And then in terms of choosing a roommate, you can either choose to go random or you can choose to choose your own roommate. There are a bunch of Facebook groups that Northwestern creates at the start of when you start Northwestern, and you can meet them that way, or you can choose a friend. But yeah, there's really a lot of options, and I think the diversity in that is awesome.
Great, thank you so much. Kandise, if you want to help us out as we start to wrap up, if you could briefly answer a very important question that we get very often. How is the weather in Evanston at Northwestern? Is it true that 10 feet of snowfall every day? What are the rumors on that?
Absolutely not that much snow. I am from sunny Long Beach, California, where there is 9 miles of beach on my city on the peninsula. The biggest thing is just getting a real winter coat. And if that is a financial burden for you, we have coat drives every single year. But that is really the biggest thing, making sure that you don't have your winter coat being a jean jacket like me. And in addition, there's also services like, it has a bad name, but the Frostbite shuttle that runs anytime it's beneath around 40 degrees. That will run from all of the campus buildings for classes to your residential building. So even if you don't want to walk outside in the snow, you don't have to. And as well, Northwestern does a really great job of salting all of the various different sidewalks. And so if you want to bike around or scoot around during the winter, I wouldn't recommend that just for my own clumsiness, but that is an option if you want.
Great, thank you. Nice to know that even those in sunny California can survive during their time on campus. We obviously want all of our students to feel comfy and warm and comfortable. And so unfortunately, we are running low on time. However, there is an important question I wanted to ask all of our panelists before we part ways today. As I mentioned earlier, a very important question to all of us at Northwestern is why NU? Why here over anywhere else? Why do you want to call this place home? Why do you want to be a Wildcat? So what I'd love to do is just briefly hear from each of our panelists. I'll pass it to one, they'll pass it to the next, and share just briefly what their reason was for selecting Northwestern. So Tricia, would you want to start out by just sharing and answering that question for us?
I would love to. So one thing that stuck out to me coming in as an engineering student was this course called Design Thinking and Communication, or DTC for short. To give a brief rundown, it's basically a team of engineers, and I say engineer in quotes because you're a first-year engineering student, you're 18 years old, and you're immediately given a real-world client who has a real-world problem, and you actually come up with a tangible solution to that problem over that 10-week quarter. And immediately I was astounded by this. I always thought that you were in college for 4 years and then you started doing real things, and I've always been a hands-on learner. And this isn't just true for the engineering school, it's true for all of the undergraduate schools, whether that's the journalism residency in Medill or whether that's the practicum in the School of Education and Social Policy. So you really do get that experience of like working and actually doing real work while you're in the classroom. You don't just have your nose in a textbook, which I was so pumped about coming to Northwestern. So that's a brief and one of many why Northwestern's for me. And I would love to pass it over to Trevor next to talk about his.
Yeah, so my Northwestern is, I came to Northwestern because I was really interested in a bunch of different things, whether that be gaming, whether that be the arts, and whether that be like social sciences. I love Northwestern because when I got to Northwestern, I found a whole bunch of people like me. Like all the panelists here, we all have so many different interests, whether it's Tricia being an engineer and a vocalist. I have a friend who is both a dance major and a physicist. So it's just really great to meet all these different people who have so many different interests, and it's just really a way to meet other people like you. And it's such a great environment to learn from. I'm going to pass it over to Kandise next.
I'll speak about a little bit of my experience as a graduate. For me, that's made Northwestern the most special is the people. Being able to go to Northwestern, I found that Wildcats are the friends and comrades and peers that not only support you with your greatest moments of triumph, but also support you at your greatest lows, which is definitely necessary. And so I found that Northwestern people, whether you are, right down the street from them and you want to stop by for coffee, or you're halfway across the world, these are going to be the people who are checking in on you and making sure that you are feeling great. With that, I'll pass it off to Chloe.
So I literally, when I was applying, I had a giant list of requirements for school, and Northwestern checked every single thing off my list. But I think the thing that I love the most about Northwestern, like Kandise and Trevor touched on, is really the people, and just being in such a collaborative, supportive environment where everyone, your friends, your fellow students, teachers, professors, faculty, everyone really, really, really wants you to do well and is rooting for you and for your success. So to be able to learn in such a supportive environment has been the most incredible experience. Sorry, I'll pass it on to Delaney.
My why Northwestern, I've got like 3 big reasons. So in high school, I was like, I want to do film, but also maybe psychology and also maybe gender studies and Russian literature. I don't know. And then Northwestern was the only school that I could actually do all of those things. Thanks to the quarter system, thanks to those flexible 8 classes, I get to take classes in everything. It's so well-rounded, and that's something very, very special about this school. Second reason is when I first toured here, I was just like, these people are like me. They talk like me. I feel like we think the same, and we're equally as excited about all this stuff that's going on. So I just felt like it was a place that would be comfortable for who I am. And then 3 is just the insane career opportunities I've gotten by going here. It ended up not just being an investment in like my education, but definitely to carry through with my whole life.
Great. Thank you all so much for sharing just a little bit about why you chose Northwestern and answering all the questions we've taken on today. And thank you to all of our viewers and listeners for tuning in and just being curious about the university. We really appreciate it that you're spending your time with us. If you haven't already done so, if you're looking for more content, I would highly recommend subscribing to learn more about the university. Our YouTube channel is going to host a lot of content, similar panels such as this, but also special topics as well. So I definitely recommend exploring them. But again, thank you so much for joining us wherever you are. We hope that you are safe and healthy and hopefully happy as well. Thank you again for joining us. And as always, go Cats.